A rock-climbing death, a horrific concert catastrophe, and alcoholism have hounded the members of Pearl Jam throughout their careers. When Pearl Jam's founding fathers got together to form the group, bassist Jeff Ament and guitarist Stone Gossard were veterans of the Seattle scene. They had played for seminal proto-grunge rockers Green River and later for Mother Love Bone, a glam-infused hard rock act fronted by Andrew Wood. Following Wood's fatal heroin overdose in 1990, Ament and Gossard dealt with their grief in different ways. Ament pursued a graphic arts career while still playing music on a smaller scale, while Gossard pushed forward with his musical ambitions, this time opting for heavier songs than the ones he helped create with Mother Love Bone. Meanwhile, Gossard's friend Mike McCready was upset over the recent disbandment of his own group, Shadow. He had started playing in another band when Gossard heard him playing and invited him to join his yet unnamed project. The two guitarists clicked perfectly during a series of informal jams, and when Ament joined the duo, the seeds were planted for what would turn out to be one of the most influential bands of the 1990s rock scene. Soon after the band's early rehearsals, Jeff Ament, Stone Gossard, and Mike McCready brought in two new members to complete the lineup, drummer Dave Cruzan and singer Eddie Vedder, who was then establishing himself as an up-and-coming musician in San Diego. Of course, we now know that Vedder would essentially define Pearl Jam's sound as their lead singer and one of their primary songwriters. And one of the earliest signs the Seattle-based bandmates knew they were working with someone special was when he provided lyrics to Gossard's $1 Short demo and transformed it into the song we now know as Alive. The lyrics stand out because they tell a fictionalized account of an unforgettable moment in Vedder's life. For much of his youth, he believed that his mother's husband, Peter Mueller, was his birth father, only to find out in his teens that Mueller was actually his stepfather. Vedder's birth father was a man named Ed Severson, whom he had mainly known as a family friend and had since died of multiple sclerosis. Speaking to Howard Stern in 2020, Vedder said that while this revelation surprised him, he was somewhat relieved to learn the truth given his contentious relationship with his stepfather.
It was a shock, but I was so grateful in a way.
Before they hired Soundgarden's Matt Cameron in 1998, Pearl Jam went through a series of drummers who each left after just a short time with the band. Dave Cruzan was the first of those drummers, having played on Pearl Jam's 1991 debut album 10, but he left soon after the making of the album. Speaking years later to Rolling Stone ahead of Pearl Jam's 2017 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, Cruzan opened up about why he really left the group. He admitted, "I'm an alcoholic. I had really been just sick of my disease at that point and could just not stop drinking." Cruzan, who left right before Pearl Jam broke out as a force to be reckoned with in the Seattle grunge scene, told Rolling Stone that missing out on this success was not that hard for him. Following his stint with Pearl Jam, Cruzan spent time with a few other familiar names in rock, including Candlebox and Unified Theory. Dave Cruzan was not the only Pearl Jam member who faced substance abuse issues in the 1990s. Guitarist Mike McCready was in a similar situation following the success of 10 and Pearl Jam's 1993 follow-up album Versus, turning to drugs and alcohol as he struggled to cope with the band's increasing popularity and critical acclaim. He eventually checked into a rehabilitation center in Minnesota.
I was in a rehab place called Hazleton right there, after years of drinking and all sorts of different things.
He met bassist John Baker Saunders while in rehab. Together with Saunders, Screaming Trees drummer Barrett Martin, and Alice in Chains frontman Lane Staley, the now sober McCready formed the supergroup Mad Season, which released one album, Above, in 1995. The McCready credited Mad Season in a 2013 interview with Pop Matters for helping him recover from his substance abuse issues. He wasn't able to record a follow-up album with the band. Saunders overdosed on heroin in 1999, and Staley was found dead in 2002 after years of drug addiction. McCready told the outlet, "I thought Mad Season would be the antidote to my friend's health troubles. In hindsight, I realized everyone has to figure out their own issues by themselves."
Well, the Seattle Rockers are back with their first album in 4 years, and they have just kicked off a world tour in Europe.
On June 30th, 2000, one of the worst tragedies in the history of live rock concerts happened at the Roskilde Festival in Denmark, as 8 people died of suffocation in the audience during Pearl Jam's set, with a 9th attendee dying 5 days later. In a 2003 interview with Rolling Stone, Eddie Vedder admitted that the deaths at Roskilde impacted his band so much that they were strongly considering calling it a career. He said, "We came together as close as we could. People handled it in different ways. The guys whose general disposition is more emotional, they became more composed, whereas some of the people who are more conservative with their emotions, they kind of cracked." Vedder also revealed that Stone Gossard was most affected by the tragedy, to the point he was ready to quit after Roskilde. He added, "And I thought that if anyone ever lost their lives at one of our shows, that would be it. I would never play again." Despite how close they apparently came to disbanding, Pearl Jam was back on stage in the US about a month later. Vedder credited Sonic Youth's presence as their opening act as a huge boost. In particular, he thanked Sonic Youth co-founders Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon's young daughter Coco for boosting his spirits on tour. The years 2016 and 2017 were rough ones personally for Eddie Vedder. In 2016, his half-brother Chris Mueller died in a climbing accident. Years later, he would dedicate the song Brother the Cloud from his 2022 solo album Earthling to his brother's memory. He also opened up to Howard Stern in 2020 about how the loss affected him and his family.
That one took me down so hard. I seriously didn't know if I was going to get out of that one.
1 year after Chris Mueller's death, Vedder's longtime friend, Soundgarden frontman Chris Cornell, died by suicide, and this loss also had a tremendous impact on the Pearl Jam singer. The two had first worked together when Vedder and Cornell duetted on lead vocals on Hunger Strike, a song from Temple of the Dog's self-titled tribute album to Mother Love Bone's Andrew Wood. In the Stern interview, Vedder reflected on his friendship with Cornell and how they only saw each other a few times in the last decade or so of Cornell's life.
I still haven't quite dealt with it, or... I'll get stronger as time goes.
If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988 or by calling 1-800-273-TALK 8255.